Hi, good evening. This is Dr. Hedaya. You know, in the course of my career, which is now into about its 41st year in medicine, you come to points where you realize that you are really moving forward to a new level. And I would say to you that that's what's happening in my medical model over the last couple of years. And today I had a case that I'd like to share with you because it was so really astounding. I have been successful in helping someone who really even 3 years ago I could not have helped. So this is a young guy who's about 18 years of age. Came to me, was about 16 or so. And I treated him. He was actually beginning to get somewhat better, diagnosed him with Lyme. He then ended up going to a Lyme specialist who was giving him intravenous antibiotics, was hospitalized. This was out of my care. He was hospitalized in a psychiatric setting. And then his mother brought him back to me roughly about 6 months ago. And he was much less angry than he was a couple of years ago, more mature, but still quite ill. His problems were serious depression, and he had some dissociation that was significant, a lot of anxiety and panic attacks and trouble with sleep and insomnia and brain fog and extreme fatigue and very low motivation. And he really didn't see any future for himself and really unable to manage in the world or in interactions with people at all. And what we did is, we did a functional medicine workup, very thorough workup, and started treating him for nutritional deficits and gastrointestinal problems. And he started to get somewhat better. And then I did a qEEG, and I looked at his brain waves in a lot of detail and found that he actually had sustained injury at a young age and was suffering with a real difficulty from a low oxygen experience near birth. And this was evident in the qEEG. And so the result of this was that a specific layer in his cortex, in the surface of the brain, was injured and malfunctioning. And the problem with this was that he was unable to match his environment with his expectations of his environment. So really would feel quite ineffective, really, with all of his interactions and unable to predict what the world would bring or how it would respond to him. So what I did is I put him on hyperbaric oxygen, and we did something called neurofeedback, which we can now do actually remotely. He's actually living in another part of the country. We're able to do this remotely in his home. And here's what we found. And I'm going to share my screen with you so you can see that this, let me explain this to you. Here on the left is where he started. Now, this is a kind of overview of the brain. You're kind of looking down at the head. Here's the nose and the ears on the left and the right and the back of the head here. And the white areas are normal. You can see it doesn't have too many white areas. And the blue areas are less active, and the red areas are overactive. Here we have delta, theta, alpha, beta, and high beta. These are different frequencies of neuronal firing. So this is a map here of the neurons that are firing 1 to 4 times per second. And these are the neurons that are firing 5 to, say, 8 times per second or 9 times per second. And these are the ones that are firing roughly 10 times per second. And the beta are the ones that are firing 12 or 13 times per second. And the high beta would be 25, say, to about 30 times per second. So you can see that he has different populations of neurons which do different things, are having different levels and types of dysfunction. And you can see the most egregious, most problematic thing for him here is this high level of theta, which would cause real difficulty difficulties with focus and concentration and leave a person in a very emotional state, unable to think clearly. This is where you do some of your higher order thinking here, but you can see that he is dysfunctional here as well. With treatment, which included hyperbaric oxygen and neurofeedback, you could see a great deal of normalization. The white hairs, again, are normal. And you can see he still has a theta problem, but it's much, much better. Beta is virtually normal. And we still have a little bit of a difficulty of delta here that we have to work on. But what struck me was how massive a change has occurred in this young man in really a relatively short period. And his mother was literally in tears with me today, saying that I had saved his life. Now, of course, I couldn't have done this without her help and her husband's help in helping him get the treatment, but I couldn't have done this 2 years ago or 3 years ago. Now we can do this, and it's quite remarkable. I want to show you one other thing, which is some genetic work that we're going to do with him. We started doing. These are his deiodinase DIO2 genes. And what you can see here, the deiodinase 2 genes are the genes that control the thyroid production in the brain. And you can see here, the yellow means he has one abnormal copy and one normal copy, and the orange is two abnormal copies. You can see that. So he has 6 out of the 8 genes that control thyroid production in the brain are abnormal. And that means very likely he's not making enough thyroid hormone in his brain. The result of that is that you have depression, you have ADD, you have anxiety, social anxiety, mood swings. And so we are going to actually treat him with high doses of T3, which is thyroid hormone. And there are actually lots of studies in the literature about using high dose T3 for people with depression, but there's really, up until now, been no guidance about who would respond and who would not. We actually started treating him with this about 2 weeks ago, and he's beginning to respond significantly. We're going to go higher with this, and we're anticipating, based on his early response, that he's going to continue to do well. I think this is a remarkable watershed change in the nature of the treatment. Not only are we using traditional psychiatry with some psychotherapy, but also functional medicine. Now we are layering on top of that neurofeedback, hyperbaric oxygen, laser treatments in the brain, other technologies that we're using to actually target specific neuronal tracks inside the brain. So it's that I felt it was important that I share this with you. So thank you for listening, and hope you are well and stay well and safe. Thank you.